Hi everyone, let's talk a little bit about everyone's favorite subject, and that's taxes. Depending on your municipality, your state, and I'm assuming because I only do work within the United States that you are referring to the US system. You are going to have many taxes as a business owner. Of course, the big one that was due today, March 15th, is federal income tax for corporations. Today is the day, March 15th, is when those are due. If you're an LLC and you file those on your 1040 on a Schedule C, then they aren't due till next month. So let's kind of go over some of the taxes that are required of business owners. I'm in the state of Utah, so obviously that's the one I'm most concerned with and that I know the best. So you may want to kind of take this with a grain of salt if you're outside of Utah. So of course we have federal tax. If you have payroll, a lot of your federal tax will be paid quarterly or with each payroll. Which leads me to the next one, which is payroll taxes. And for payroll taxes, you have federal and state and sometimes municipality. State taxes would be income and payroll, and then also sales tax. If you sell, unless they've changed this, if they've changed it, someone please tell me. If you sell on the internet, you usually do not have to pay sales tax for out-of-state purchases because you do not have a brick-and-mortar location. Hopefully that remains the same, because I just can't even imagine the bookkeeping nightmare that's going to be if they decide to make everybody pay taxes according to where their customer is instead of where they themselves are. That's kind of the overview. Now, each of those taxes has its own set of problems. Number one, as a bookkeeper, I only do payroll taxes and sales taxes. And when I say I do those, I usually will prepare the reports. It's depending on the service that you've contracted with me for. I will usually prepare the reports, go over them with my client, and the client is actually responsible for getting those taxes in. For payroll taxes, on the federal program, you are supposed to deposit the taxes. That means both the part that was withheld from your employees and the part that the employer contributes through the EFTPS system, which means electronic, I don't remember what it means, but it's EFTPS, tax payment system. Electronic Federal Tax Payment System, that's what it means. Which is you just make those deposits right there online, comes right out of your bank account. It's really easy. That's really the big thing with taxes. The number one question I get is, can you help me with my taxes? And the answer is, to an extent. I don't do taxes. I'm not a tax preparer. I have been one in the past. I enjoyed doing it, but it's crazy how much the tax code changes from fiscal year to fiscal year. So I quit doing it because bookkeeping is the same. Bookkeeping is the same across industries. There's only so many ways to do bookkeeping, which is to say one. You know, either you have fixed assets or you don't. You either have a point of sale system or you don't. There's a few things. It's really very binary, honestly. There's no shades of gray in bookkeeping. It's black and white, and which is really why I like it. You're either, this is the way you do it. Payroll, though, not payroll, taxes. Taxes, there's so much going on, especially here in the US, especially on the federal level with Obamacare coming in and now maybe on the way out, and nobody really knows what's going on. And for that reason, as soon as Obamacare was passed, actually, that's when I got out of doing taxes. I don't want to keep up with that kind of continuing education. I can talk to you about the basics. I can refer you to an excellent tax preparer, but I will guarantee you that the kind of people that I'm going to refer you to are not going to want to see your books in the shoebox. They're going to want to see everything in some sort of accounting software, nicely and neatly organized, and easy for them to use and audit at the drop of a button or click of a button. So those are the taxes that most business owners need to be aware of. They're federal income tax. And kind of for those of you that don't know, you're supposed to be paying federal tax all year. If you are a W-2 employee and your employer takes out your paycheck, takes taxes out of your paycheck, and sorry, sometimes my brain goes faster than my mouth does and things don't come out the way I'm thinking them. If you are an employee of a company, you get a W-2 at the end of the year, your employer takes taxes out of your paycheck, then when you file your federal taxes at the beginning of the year, what you're doing is you're reconciling, this is what I've paid, this is either what I owe or what the government owes me. Ideally, those should be pretty close together. If you have child tax credits and earned income credits and all kinds of things, you can be getting a big check back from the government. But if that's the case, then I would suggest taking your withholdings way down to zero because you want to have control of your money. But for a business owner, you want to keep what you're sending to the government and what you actually owe the government as close as possible. Usually if you have payroll, usually you will have to make these tax deposits every other week when you do your payroll for the federal government. I can assist you with that. I can show you how to make those payments, or I can refer you to an outside payroll company that will just take care of that. It's set it and forget it. It's great. But that's really what you're doing is you're paying your income tax, you're paying half of your employees' taxes, and that's what you're, and FICA and Medicare and all the other payroll associated taxes. You're paying those as you go. Now, the reason they do that is the same reason I really push at least monthly bookkeeping, if not weekly. And that is, it's a lot easier to pay a few $100s every other week than it is to pay thousands of dollars at the end of the year, right? So it always seems like such a burden, and it is, but at the same time, can you imagine how awful it would be if you weren't making those tax deposits and you had a huge tax bill at the end of the year? So yeah, I can assist with payroll tax. The other major tax that I assist with is sales tax. Most of the time, state tax is taken care of at the same time as federal tax. Usually, at least in the state of Utah, I have found that payroll taxes for the state of Utah are just done on a paper return. Those checks are just mailed into the state. Again, if someone has different information than me, please comment below because I want to know. And I'm not, although I am the expert, I'm not the only expert, and I may have bad information about state taxes. This is only for the state of Utah. That's the only state I can speak about because this is where I live and this is where I work, and so this is what I'm most familiar with. As I expand into more markets, or as I look into growing into Kentucky and Washington and some other places, I will become an expert in those taxes as well, but I'm still going to depend on people, if things have changed, to tell me. It's hard to keep track of 53 different tax markets, 50 states plus the Washington, D.C., plus Puerto Rico, plus Guam, and I don't know if there's any others that maybe the U.S. Virgin Islands. But there's so many different tax oh gosh darn it, what's the word I'm looking for? Tax areas. You have each state, and then you have these special protectorates outside of the states that are still part of the U.S. that have their own laws. And without having a lot of documentation, it's just about impossible to keep track of them all. So I'm going to speak only about Utah. If you have questions about another state, comment below. I will look them up and find out for you. But again, let me emphasize, I'm only talking about Utah when I'm talking about state taxes, because that's the state that I'm in. In the state of Utah, I have found that for payroll taxes, we just take care of those quarterly. I recommend to my clients that you go ahead and put the money aside, or use an outside payroll company that will take care of that for you. They'll go ahead and withhold everything, put it in a separate bank account, and pay those taxes for you when it becomes necessary. I really recommend that. I love doing that. I do have a do-it-yourself option for payroll, however, in which case I would kind of walk you through the process. But in the end, regardless of how you do your taxes, whether you have an outside payroll company do your payroll taxes, if you have a paid preparer do them, unless you have an attorney or an EA or a CPA, and that's who I recommend prepares your taxes, you are, well, even if you do, whoever signs the tax return is the one that is ultimately responsible. That's who has the liability on all of the taxes. So if you file jointly with your spouse, both spouses are equally responsible if anything goes wrong with that tax return. Even if one spouse is the breadwinner and the other spouse was a stay-at-home parent, it doesn't matter. They're both equally responsible. If you are partners in a business and you both sign that tax return, you are both equally responsible for any liability on that tax. Now, I don't sign tax returns, and this is why. I will walk through with my client. I want to make sure they understand, but I am not a tax preparer. I don't have a tax preparer ID, which is actually required. I'm not an enrolled agent. I am not a CPA yet. I just do bookkeeping. While I will help you with your taxes, I won't do them for you, and that's a little bit of a difference. But those are the taxes that most people want to know about. Federal 940 and 941 is usually the ones people are thinking of when they talk about quarterly taxes. Those are done with the payroll. 1040 is what is your individual tax return. Also a Schedule C, if you have an LLC that you're the sole owner of, it's done on a Schedule C inside your 1040. There are K2s, which are partnership tax returns, and then there are specialized returns. I think it's 1128, if I remember correctly, for corporations. You want to go to your CPA or your EA and get those done. I will have all of the information ready for them. I can fill out the form for you and kind of walk you through why I did what I did. But for me, I personally don't do taxes. So if you have any questions about taxes, I do have a lot of information about them. I do know quite a lot about them. I just choose not to prepare them. Again, my job is to get everything ready to make sure that you as a business owner have the information that you need to run your business correctly. And part of that is, in fact, getting that information to your tax preparer at the end of the year to make sure that they have the information they need. And that's what I do. So if you have any questions about taxes, be sure to comment below. If you are outside of the state of Utah and have questions about state taxes, comment below. I will look up the answer and let's find out, and I'll do another video on it. You guys have a great